Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight. We have a big show for you as always. Steve Atwater is going to join us coming up in the next segment, talk a little bit about whether Drew Lock should be getting 7-on-7s together. Also, Alexis Perry a little later on about Von Miller in PFF's top 50. But Benjamin, we're going to start with Greg Cosell talking about Drew Lock. Did a nice little breakdown on fantasypoints.com. And in it, of course, he highlighted the strengths of Drew Lock, the arm strength. I mean, he highlighted some of the things he liked about his improvisational skills, but the things that he wanted him to work on. Footwork is one of those things. Drifting in the pocket is another one. Some fundamental aspects of his pocket awareness. So I'd love to get an idea from you, Benjamin. What of those could we actually see a big jump from him in year two?
Well, I think those are the things. We've talked about that ad nauseum on the radio show at night, and the mechanical refinements that Drew Lock needs, and that those are what he needs. He's got to tighten up that footwork. He's got to quit throwing loose and have a tight base so that he knows how to generate the most power from his torso. He's got to be able to not drift back in the pocket. We've seen that with quarterbacks here in Denver. Trevor Siemian used to be the worst at drifting back in that pocket. What does that lead to? Easy sacks, because the further you drip back, the easier it is for that edge rush arc to come around and make that sack, and your tackles have to be that much better. So we definitely need to see those improvements, and I think those are the easiest things to coach out of a quarterback in terms of getting rid of muscle memory on bad habits.
Yeah, is drifting in the quarterback, is that kind of I know that we've seen that in some vet quarterbacks too, but it does seem like a tendency sometimes with younger quarterbacks. Is that something from college? Is that just not trusting their O-line, their reads? What is that?
Well, it's part of it. I mean, when you're in the college game, usually you're lined up in the shotgun and you've got a wider view of what's going on. You're not under center. You don't have to drop back and then step up and trust your pocket. You've got a wider view of it, and you kind of just take off to the left and right. Sometimes you'll take a quick step up and go. But typically when you're coming out of the college game, you haven't mastered that art of that step up in the pocket. And that's something that has to be taught. And then something that has to be reinforced in game. You've got to be able to, in the game, you've got to recognize and trust the protection in front of you to be able to step up, buy that extra half second, make the throw. Or in Drew's case, if you've got the mobility to be able to cut, take off, and go in between the guard and the tackle, or wherever the hole may be for you to pick up yardage with your legs.
Yeah, he really, and that's something we do obviously see with young quarterbacks, is if it's not there, sometimes they'll get a little bit of the green light from the OC or quarterback's coach. Go ahead and try to gain some positive yards. Don't take the sack. Put yourself too far behind the sticks. So that was one of the things that Greg Cosell pointed out, is sometimes Drew Lock had a tendency, like a lot of young quarterbacks, to sort of say, hey, if it's not there, I'm going to take off and run. Wanted to see a little more pocket discipline. That seems like something that takes maybe more than a year, maybe a couple of years to really develop and be precise with, don't you think?
Yeah, it takes time. It takes doing it. It takes reps. It takes doing it to do it. A lot of the old offenses were designed with that third read and beyond being out-breaking routes, so the quarterback could just take a step up in the pocket and throw the ball towards the receiver, where he could either make a play on it or go out of bounds. That way you're not taking the sack. But in the modern NFL, the extra dimension in that, the fourth read, as it were, is the quarterback taking off with his legs. And so you've got to have the ability and the trust to step up in the pocket and then further step up beyond and try to make a play with your legs if that's what you're going to do, and that's going to be part of your game. But it takes reps. It takes doing it to do it.
Speaking of mobile quarterbacks, NFL.com had an analyst say that he actually thinks Drew Lock could take a bigger leap in year two than Kyler Murray. Now, that doesn't surprise somebody like you, being the leader of the Drew Lock fan club, but I think for a lot of people, considering Kyler Murray went number one overall, that was a little bit of a surprise to see. Why do you think that actually could happen?
Well, I think that Drew Lock has a higher ceiling. I think Kyler Murray is kind of what you see is what you get. He's already topped out as an athlete. He's not going to get stronger in his arm strength. What things was Kyler Murray deficient in last year that he's suddenly going to get better at? He was a pretty quick decision maker, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, and getting rid of the ball fast, getting rid of the ball quickly. And so, I don't know that Kyler Murray has a lot of room to, air quotes, improve in that offense. He really just need the game to slow down for him, as you've mentioned before. That's really about it. With Drew Lock, there are things to improve. We've talked about the footwork. We've talked about the drifting in the pocket. We've talked about trusting that protection and those kinds of things. And, if Drew Lock can do those things, he's already got all those things that you can't coach. If you get the things that you can coach on top of it, then he becomes a complete product. And I think in those terms, he has the potential to take a bigger leap.
Okay, so follow me down kind of a little bit of a wild idea, okay? Basing this on the premise that Drew Lock takes a bigger leap than Kyler Murray, and I don't know about their careers or anything like that, but is there a point, an argument eventually, that Drew Lock could actually be the best quarterback in this draft class? I know I'm talking to the leader of the Drew Lock fan club. You probably already thought that before the draft even happened, but Yeah, well, look, Daniel Jones, a little bit of a mixed bag. We don't know what Dwayne Haskins is going to be. Those are usually the guys you get compared to. What do you think about that?
I think it's very possible that he could be. I don't think there's anything holding back. We were talking about Drew Lock being drafted top 15 before the draft. There were some people liked him, some people that didn't. Some of the teams that liked him ended up getting other quarterbacks early. And, the Giants were kind of split on Daniel Jones and Drew Lock early on. So, I think that the idea that he was a tier behind them or whatever is kind of false, because he was in that same conversation. Circumstances pushed him in the second round. So, yes, I think Drew Lock could be the best quarterback in this class. It's just a question of, whether the guy that he is, the guy he could be, ever meet. And if he is at that point in time, I expect everyone to direct their comments to Ryan Edwards is a hater at gmail.com.
Yeah, actually, I think I'm going to get a lot of Gardner Minshew. Like, where the heck is Gardner Minshew in this argument from Jacksonville fans?